Welcome to the 100 Club. It's a live stream. We are joined by Rich.
Hello, Tom. How are you doing?
I'm right, and I'm Tom, as you say. I'm good, thanks. Yeah, we are in the middle of quite a busy period of cricket. We are going to do a few things today, aren't we?
Yeah, so we're going to use this as an opportunity to do our roundup of the round 3 of the games. But as we record it, we've got Northern Superchargers, Oval Invincibles just starting.
And 4, 3, 2. See if they can get the countdown right today.
So we're gonna have a bit of a chat around that game as well. Plus any questions that come our way, we might deal with.
Yeah. So it's been a busy round. I think the one I'd like to start with is the fact that we got the Northern Superchargers Oval Invincibles starting right now. So squad news wise, what have you seen?
So I think the big news is Tabraiz Shamsi makes his first start of the competition. He was a late replacement for Sandeep Lamichhane, the Nepali leg spinner, a very experienced South African spinner, brought in as the third overseas for the Oval. And obviously they see something in the wicket today that means they want that additional spin option.
I think they'd have him on most wickets. He is bang in form. I think he's right up there in the ICC rankings at the moment in the short format. So it'll be really interesting to see how he goes today.
Yeah, I think it's going to be an intriguing game. We saw a very low-scoring game in the women's game earlier, which we're going to touch on in a minute. So if we see something similar, then obviously taking pace off could be critical.
Yeah, so just a steady start though. Jason Roy just nicking a single, a leg by, so 2 for 2 there, and we'll keep that going as we're going on. But let's talk about some of the games earlier in the round at the moment. Let's start with the Southern Brave versus the Birmingham Phoenix game, which was, I think, yesterday, wasn't it?
Yeah, so this was last night's game, and the Southern Brave came into it on the back of 2 defeats, despite being one of the highly fancied teams at the start of the tournament. It was their first game at the Rose Bowl in front of their home fans, and it was ended up being a pretty good game, chasing down, I think it was sort of 150 odd that the Birmingham Phoenix had posted. It was an interesting innings by the Phoenix because they sort of lost early wickets, and then it was a good partnership between Liam Livingstone and Miles Hammond sort of rescued them. And at one point, It looked like they'd only be sort of getting to 120, 130, but they managed to get themselves up to 150. Livingstone got himself up into the 60s.
So those two both struck at over 150. Livingstone hadn't really done much in the competition to date, but it's good 68 from him. I should just say, if you're out there watching along, this is a fan community, so we are welcome your comments down below. We'll happily bring questions up on the screen if you've not seen us before. Say hi, put a thumbs up, give us a subscribe. That's great. But we'll be happy to take questions as you're going along. So if you were particularly impressed with Liam Livingstone, let us know, and we'll maybe talk about him a bit more.
Yeah, and if you don't agree with anything we're saying as well, please let us know, because there's plenty of opinions out there, and ours a bit too. Yeah. I mean, obviously you follow the games closely. We've been lucky enough to talk to quite a few of the cricketers in the competition, and we had a lovely chat with Adam Milne, the New Zealand fast bowler with the Birmingham Phoenix on Thursday, and he bowled particularly well last night. He ended up with 3 for 15 off his 20 balls. Hi Shai, nice to see you. But ultimately, sort of the main thing of the game came down to Shai Manju, because it was
You get confused by the comments.
It was saying Trent Rocket's Northern Superchargers was the best match of the tournament. Yeah, I agree with that. We'll come back to it. So with 7 balls to go, you had Adam Milne bowling, I think it was at Chris Jordan.
Yeah.
And he needed, at that point, they needed sort of 13 or 14 to win. And it was a ball that was just inside the blue line for me. And Martin Saggers calls it a wide. And at that point, the cutoff time then becomes an issue. And because he has to bowl the extra ball, then they miss out the cutoff time. And the first ball of Tom Helm's first set of the last 5 goes for 4 through square leg.
Where you'd have a fielder.
You naturally would, but they didn't, because they'd had to bring one up because they'd missed the cutoff time because they'd had the extra in the previous delivery. So it's one of those moments where a key umpiring call really changed the course of the game.
Yeah, I mean, I loved seeing Adam Milne bowling, particularly as we'd spoken to him less than 24 hours prior to that. And obviously, I think he had the best demolition of some stumps we've seen in the tournament so far, right through Devon Conway, not just any batter either.
Yeah, and we know he would have enjoyed that as well, because he talked about sort of targeting the other Kiwi players in the tournament.
Yeah. Shai's put a question in. I think it's as good a time as any to put it up. So let's have a look. So why is the men's games seeing a lot of low scores? Is it because of the used pitches? So there are a mixture of scores. We're seeing. I don't know if you've done the averages yet on that one, Rich.
No, I haven't looked.
Anywhere between sort of 110 out to 160 is quite a big variance in the scores. And you're probably right, Shai, in terms of what the pitches are being used. So we've seen some pitches that clearly have had a women's game on, and maybe a couple of games, a week before being reused. There's also this thing about hybrid pitches, and I don't know if you've been following that, Rich. What's your opinion on those hybrid pitches?
I don't know an awful lot about how they're prepared, but they do seem to be a bit slower than standard pitches. I mean, we've seen a lot of wickets going to spinners. We've seen a lot of success for the likes of Matt Parkinson and Rashid Khan, up to date in the tournament. Matt Carter, who came as a replacement for the Trent Rockets, has bowled particularly well. We saw that one on Thursday night at Lords, where Trent Rockets posted 125 off their 100 balls, and were able to defend it actually reasonably comfortably against the London Spirit, and that was a very tricky pitch to score on. So I think, in answer to the question, it is an element of the pitches as well. But there's also, I think, probably the quirk of the rules. This idea that the shortened power play, but only having 5 balls, bowlers getting out their sets a little bit quicker, not being hit for that boundary off the last ball of the over, as we often see in T20. I think that could be playing a factor as well.
I think there's a factor for me in that teams aren't quite pacing themselves right yet as well. So there's a feeling about how hard you have to push. Do you get down to 8 wickets down, 9 wickets down, or do you really need to sort of hold on to those wickets right to the end? So I think there's a bit of uncertainty in the format. Those hybrid pitches, I think you can spot quite easily. They almost look like they've been raked. And what they have is an element of artificial pitch in there, as well as the normal grass as well. The artificial grass, the natural grass woven in. And to me, a lot of the bounce looks like it's just holding up out of the pitch and probably causing some of those issues. So, Shai, good question. I think you're probably right in used pitches. And look, as I'm watching the Oval Invincibles Superchargers right now, 5 runs from 11. It could be another one of those. We saw the women's game earlier. I think they got to 109, was it?
Yeah, that's right. And defended it as well. And with that, I'll go on to next question on uncapped England players, and I'll talk about before we go into sort of the men's comp. One name that we've all been excited about from an English point of view is Alice Capsey, the 16-year-old opener for the Oval Invincibles. She had a fantastic knock at Lords last Sunday, and in this round. Yeah, but this round she impressed with the ball. I think she had 2 for 9 off her 20 balls today in a really tense, low-scoring game up at Headingley, the women's half of the Northern Superchargers Oval Invincibles. Yeah, but Northern Superchargers were able to defend a relatively small total, and that was an interesting example of a team really getting their run chase wrong. You look at in their 2 wins to date, Maddie Villiers has had success coming in relatively late on and really upping the strike rate. She comes in with 1 ball left today and 1 ball that she had to hit for 6. I think Jonathan Batty is going to have some thinking to do, because when you're chasing 110, if you've lost that game, it should be because you've been bowled out, not because you've run out of balls.
I'd agree with that. I'll go back to the question, and I'll just have a go at the women's side, and then we'll do the men's maybe on the uncapped England players. So it's perhaps unfair to call her uncapped. She's absolutely not. But Tash Farrant has been impressive for me in the Oval Invincibles. So a reason why I'm going to bring her up is because she's out of the England setup at the moment, but bowling really nice lines, really dangerous stuff for the Oval Invincibles. So that's my pick on that side. So probably haven't answered the question there, but it's someone I'm definitely watching closely, because I think she's going to get a call back on the basis of what we've seen in this tournament so far. So have a go at the men, Rich. What do you got?
I was going to say, as we see Bryden Cast dismiss Will Jacks, he's gone for 2 off 5 balls, and the Oval, I think 6 for 1. I was going to say earlier today we saw a fantastic knock from Joe Clark. It was the second fastest 50 of the tournament so far. It looked like on paper a tricky chase for the Manchester Originals. 150 against the Welsh Fire at Sophia Gardens. It looked like that pitch again was taking a bit of spin. Relatively longish boundaries on the square. Of course, we know we have the straight boundaries at Sophia Gardens. But Clark played incredibly well, and between him and Phil Salt, they broke the back of that chase. And even though it looked a bit tricky towards the end, they always had the strike rate in hand because the openers had gone so fast. And Joe Clark was a big part of that. So I think Joe Clark has probably impressed me the most out of the uncapped England players.
Yeah, great. We've got a good chunk of people in the room now. So for those of us who've never seen us before, we're the 100 Club. Hi, we talk about cricket. That's all we want to do. And it's much better if you throw some questions down. We'll have a chat. We'll throw it up on screen. But it's great to have you here. And if you're enjoying it, stick us a like and subscribe. We'd appreciate it. I'm going to give my uncapped England player who's impressed me, and I'm going to go with Matt Carter for the Trent Rockets. Really, never going to be an England player. Let's be brutally honest. I don't think he doesn't. He's well into his career, bowls off spin, not up the order on going to come in, but he's taken 5 wickets in the tournament. He's hit some important runs and took a fantastic catch at slip as well in this week's games. So that's my pick. Should we have a chat about the earlier game for today, the Northern Superchargers Oval Invincibles women's game? What did you make of that one?
Yeah, so we sort of touched on it a little bit when we talked about Alice Capsey. The Oval Invincibles have had a strong start to the tournament, obviously with 2 wins off the bat. Northern Superchargers as well. Superchargers batted first. I mean, a lot of people are excited to watch Jemima Rodrigues, or J-Rod, as I like to call her. She's had a fantastic start to the tournament with a 92 in the first game, 60-odd. But she sort of failed today a little bit. A relatively low score, nicked off. It was caught by the Snicko. But the Superchargers, off the back of quite a good innings from Alice Davison-Richards, managed to get themselves up to something respectable that they could defend, which they did. And like I said, the Invincibles were only 3 or 4 wickets down and failing to chase that. I think the thing that, focus on the positive rather than the negative, Lauren Winfield-Hill's captaincy at the back end of that innings was
really good.
Brilliant.
Yeah.
Really got her field in the right places, kept them tight on the one, brought the pressure on. You felt when Van Niekerk let loose at the end, and I think hit 3 or 4 boundaries in a row, that she might just overhaul them in the same way she did in the first game. But the Superchargers held their nerve, and great win.
And some better fielding in that game. I mean, we've not been slow to say some of the women's games have had some pretty average fielding. I think that one was a better example. Shai puts the question in, timed it nicely here, Shai, with the Jemima Rodrigues comment. But who are the women who performed? Well, obviously up to this point, Jemima Rodrigues has absolutely done it, but we've seen Shafali Verma yet to really put in a big innings. We've seen Smriti Mandana put in a great innings for the Southern Brave the other day. What are your comments on that one, Rich?
Yeah, I don't know. I think we have to be careful with Shafali Verma. As talented as she is, she's 17 years old. She's playing in this tournament for the first time. She's in a new team. She's surrounded by, it's a different experience for her. I don't think she's necessarily had a terrible start. I think she got a few runs yesterday. So I would say that, give her a chance still. The tournament is young. Mandana, we know her class. She almost sort of single-handedly won the game the other night with a really solid innings with some lovely striking down the ground. Dipti Sharma's bowled quite well for the Spirit. Hasn't done an awful lot with the bat yet. And then Harmanpreet Kaur has had a kind of a mixed tournament, really. She's found herself having to anchor a frankly underperforming Manchester Originals batting lineup. She had
still yet to get their win.
They are, yeah. I mean, she had that 49 not out in the run chase the other day, but it came off 47 balls. And I think part of that was because she didn't feel like she had the license to really let loose. She had to be there at the end, and she never quite found the acceleration. So if I had to rank them, obviously it'd be probably Rodrigues first, Mandana, then Dipti Sharma, then Harmanpreet, and then Shafali. But I think all 5 of them are going to contribute at some stage. So let's hang on. I think one thing I would say, it's really created a good sort of avenue into fans in the subcontinent to follow the tournament. I know it wasn't going to happen originally, and it's happened because a lot of people dropped out due to COVID. But I actually think it's one of these really beneficial things that's happened, that we've got Indian players involved in the tournament. Yeah,
and we have to applaud the BCCI for releasing the women's players. There is rumour out there, and I don't know if you've heard this one, Rich, that they may do the same for under 23 men's players on franchise tournaments in the future. Have you seen that one?
I haven't. I think it would make sense. I think there's obviously such a talent pool over there. Yeah. There's only so much they can do in IPL cricket. Let them get around the world practice their skills, get experience in different countries. It can only benefit their cricket. As I think we've seen with our national side, in that the makeshift team that played Pakistan after half the team had to self-isolate because of the COVID positive test. It was sort of the England third 11. But actually, nearly half of that team had Pakistan Super League experience. So they were playing Pakistan. So obviously, the franchise experience was critical then. So it would be sensible for me.
I need to get my calendar out and work out which Indian players under 23 would qualify maybe next year. But I don't know, maybe Shubman Gill or someone like that. If he was to play in this tournament, wow, that would light it up, I think. We've got a new comment here from Rostu Entertainment over from Nepal. Hi, how you doing? Thanks for joining. Sunil Nareen, most underrated T20 legend and favourite player. So I have loved watching Sunil Nareen for years. I agree. I think he is underrated, though, as a performer, and absolutely doing a great job for the Oval Invincibles. Going to be hopefully, at the moment given the wicket that Brian Cast took at the game that's at the moment, Oval Invincibles Superchargers is currently 11 off 22. And Nareen is just absolutely launching a 6 as I speak into the... into cow corner. So good timing there, with the question. But what do you think of Sunil?
I'm not sure he's underrated. I think he's a fantastic player. I think he's widely regarded as a fantastic player. He's obviously been with KKR forever out in the IPL and sort of done the rounds on the franchise leagues.
And you don't do that unless you're great. I get it.
No, exactly. And I think the Oval Invincibles have Freddie Wild in as one of their analysts. The very widely respected guy in T20 cricket, and they ended up taking Sunil, I think, a second or third pick. So they obviously do their homework at the Oval Invincibles, and they've worked out that Sunil brings a lot in terms of his hitting at the top of the order, but then obviously pretty miserly spin bowling as well. And just his ability to spin it both ways from a very, very similar action is so invaluable in short form cricket. So
definitely a short form all rounder.
Yeah, agree. Legend. Underrated? I don't know. I think he gets his dues. Yeah. But come back. If you feel that he doesn't get the respect he deserves, let me know. Yeah,
certainly getting his pay right now and earning it right now. Let's see how he gets on before I give him the kiss of death in this innings now. I mean, there's a good question here from Shai relating to the Oval Invincibles, and clearly, and our last comment back from Nepal. Sandeep Lamachane. Unfortunately, unable to get the visa sorted, which I think was a real... I don't know who to blame on that one. Was it the ECB? Is it British government? Is it administration at the other end? I just don't know. And there's a lot of rumour flying around about it. But the truth is, Tabraiz Shamsi comes in. And, I was really excited about seeing Lamachane. I put him down as the young player to watch for the Oval Invincibles in our preview video. But, Shamsi's going to do a good thing for the Oval Invincibles.
Tom, it demonstrates for me why we need the 100, because clearly nobody at the Home Office in the UK knows anything about short form cricket. Because if somebody read a visa application and it said Sandeep Lamachane, you would say, yes, you can come and work here.
I'll sign that now.
Yes, you're one of the best, one of the best young leg spinners in world cricket. Of course, we want to have you playing in our tournament. But so it just proves we need more education about cricket in this country.
Yeah. Okay, so let's have a chat about another game, and then I'll maybe come back to some more of the questions in a moment. So next up, Trent Rockets versus London Spirit Men, also in this round. What are your thoughts on that one?
Well, as a Spirit fan, I was disappointed. I think it's quite funny that we picked these teams in this new tournament, and obviously we know these teams were dreamt up by a marketing department, but we've chosen teams to support, and we're a couple of games in, and genuine disappointment when they failed to chase down whatever it was, 125. Because I thought they bowled pretty well. It was Mason Crane's first appearance of the tournament. I think he bowled particularly well. A lot of spin up front. I think even Joe Denley got a bowl in that game, and I think Darcy Short played particularly well at the back end of the innings to get Trent Rockets up to something respectable.
69, hero of the match.
I know. At the halfway stage, I thought surely we're going to chase this down, but just made an absolute mess of it. And early wickets were crucial. Yeah.
So again, Josh Inglis yet to really live up to his billing. Maybe something more to come from him. And if he does, Mohammed Nabi, those kinds of players at the top end of Oval Invincibles, clearly with Owen Morgan then coming in, you'd expect them to pick up form, but at the moment, not looking so good.
I think we have to be careful. I mean, if they're being asked by their coaches to really go hard in the power play and maximize it, and they end up, hitting up in the air and getting a low score, then I think that's just sort of a collateral of the strategy, and they will come good. If they end up sort of playing a poor shot that they weren't supposed to do, then I think you can criticize them. But I think if they've been asked to go hard and they get out, that's not necessarily their fault. I thought one amazing moment was a couple of standout moments in that Spirit innings. One was the Van der Merwe 6 where he falls over. I don't know if you saw that.
On his back, pretty much.
Yeah, he's basically falling over at the point where he makes contact, and it's sort of a ramp shot to third man,
wafting his bat in the air somewhere near the top of stumps. Yeah,
and it goes all the way for 6. And then the other thing that I thought was amazing was, I can't remember who it was who skied one in the air. Maybe was it Joe Denley? And they have the helmet cam that Tom Moores, the wicketkeeper, was wearing, and you sort of saw Moores track it all the way down. And that, as they say as coaches, when you're a young cricketer, watch the ball all the way into your hands, and you could really see it on that video. It's fantastic.
I love helmet cam. They had it on Sarah Taylor in the Welsh Fire game, but won, and just watching her, just the way she positions her head when the ball is being delivered is just an absolutely masterclass for me in terms of where they, a young keeper would want to learn how to put themselves across a crease. I spoke about that from Sarah Taylor's game in the past. She's so mobile across the crease, both in batting and in keeping, and that's why she does so much good work down the leg side. Loving the helmet cam.
And and actually quite a good coaching tool, actually.
Yeah.
You'd imagine that sort of clubs around the country, or, working with youngsters, you can use that sort of point of view to show what you should be doing with your head. Yeah. Useful.
We're talking about the Trent Rockets, so let's take a question from Shai on Merchant de Lange. Clearly a replacement for Wahab Riaz, potentially in the short term, but Wahab Riaz still not got a visa coming across from Pakistan. And Lange has absolutely performed. He's at the top of the bowling charts at the moment with 8 wickets off 54 balls. Do the Trent Rockets take Wahab Riaz now?
So Marchand de Lange was a recommendation from Lewis Gregory to Andy Flower, the Trent Rockets coach, because he'd been playing down at Somerset and bowling particularly well this season. And he's been bowling incredibly well so far in the 100. The first guy to take a 5-fer, bowling 90 miles an hour plus. Do they need him for future games? I'm sort of of the opinion that if you've made an offer to a player and it hasn't come off through no fault of the player himself, then I would like to think they would honour the contract. And if they can get Wahab Riaz in, they would bring him in. Also, I think it does give another option in the left armour of Wahab Riaz, even though Luke Wood has looked pretty good in the games to date. So I would like to see them honour the contract if it was offered. But, Marchand de Lange has certainly, done a great job given the opportunity. And that's sort of one of the themes of the 100, right? That it's been this unusual season, but a lot of players who wouldn't necessarily have thought they'd be in the tournament have come in and a lot of them are doing really well.
As Sunil Nareen launches another one. Oh, the field has picked it off just on the edge of the boundary. So that's Harry Brook taking a catch in the deep. Nareen out for 22 off 10 there. And the Oval Invincibles dropped to 40 for 2 off 32 balls. So that one is going. Let's take another question, shall we? There's got a couple of good ones here. So from Roster Entertainment, 100, great up to now. And suggests up to the level of the IPL, but they need to get some broadcast in the South Asian countries, Nepal and India. So I think we have to agree that, right? We want it to have as wide a spread as possible. What I think is on fan code in India, and I don't know Indian broadcasting at all, but I think that's an app, right? Or streaming service like that. Is that right? Do you know?
I don't know. I think we did our best at the opening of the tournament to try and work out which TV stations it would be on.
I think embarrassed by that because I thought it was on Star Sports. I was reading it in Star Sports and stuff, and it just turned out it wasn't. So all I'll say is I hope that what they've seen of the tournament so far encourages someone in the broadcasting world in South Asia to get it on the telly.
I mean, if you could think of a parallel back to when the IPL first came out over here, I think the first couple of seasons the IPL was on ITV, which is a free-to-air channel in the UK. So you could watch the IPL for free the first couple of seasons because nobody really knew what it was or how popular it would be.
And they won't have paid very much money for that.
Exactly. And then after a couple of seasons, of course, it got bought by the big sports broadcasters, and now it's firmly behind the paywall on Sky Sports. So I think a similar thing. I think if there's enough interest in it, and there seems to be kind of quite a lot of interest coming from like India, Nepal, etc., then yeah, the broadcasters will and the advertisers will take notice of that.
Okay, let's take another question from Shai. Is Jofra Archer fit to play in the 100? So I think I've got the answer to this one. The reports are that as of 10 days ago, he was a month from full fitness. So that tells me that's test fitness, I would say. He is going to play in the 100, I think, but perhaps not for another week, 10 days. I think he's going to use it. He's played some second team cricket for his county, Sussex, looking okay, but he's going to need to build up. Have you heard anything different?
No, I've been following the same thing in the cricketing press. I thought it was quite interesting. In the first couple of games, in the interview at the toss, James Vince admitting to the broadcasters that he just didn't know where Jofra Archer was. Which I think I joked at the time is something that anyone who's played club cricket could sympathise with. It's always that difficult one, isn't it? Especially given the tension in this country between the traditional view of Test cricket and the 100 being the interloper. And the optics, if he's playing in the 100, but he's declared himself unfit for the Test team, then a lot of people would be complaining vociferously about that. Say, like, well, you're either fit or you're not. How are you fit to play? And even though, logically, you could say, well, in one case, I'm bowling 20 balls. In the other case, I'm bowling 20 overs in a day. It's a massive difference in workload. But I still think that, the optics might be challenging if he's seen to be playing cricket, but not in the Test team, especially if England aren't doing particularly well.
Just a little update there on the fan code thing. Apparently, 4-year deal. But going back to the Jofra Archer thing, there might be, of course, then the issue of bubbles and COVID, and just maybe he's just at the moment just trying to get himself fit and doesn't need to go into another bubble, which is a real shame, but obviously understandable. And I suppose it links to this earlier question about Ben Stokes, and we're not in a position to speculate about his health, about his position, and so forth. So all we will say, I think, is that we wish him all the best, and we want to see him healthy. Mentally and physically, and able to play cricket ideally, but you can entirely understand it. I think in terms of the pressures that some of these players are on, and if you've seen some of our interviews recently, they've all come from hotel rooms. These players are having to put themselves in hotel rooms, separate themselves from their families for long times, and particularly for the top level international stars, you can imagine that having quite an effect over time.
Yeah, we're huge cricket fans. We love the game. We love talking about it, and we love talking about big matches and pressure situations, and all that goes with that. But I think when we have these discussions with the players and do the interviews, you do realise, and I know it's such an obvious point, but you do realise you're talking to another human being at the other end of the call, and with all the same sort of going through all the same stuff off the field as we do in our daily lives. Now, as Tom says, I don't want to speculate on exactly what is the cause of Ben Stokes' particular mental illness. I think there absolutely needs to be a conversation about the amount of cricket people are playing and the amount they're being expected to travel. We don't necessarily know if those two are connected. We need to have that conversation at some point. But I think for the time being, all we can say is let's treat this in the same way as if you'd broken a leg, right? It's an injury. It's something he needs to deal with. It's something he needs to hopefully recover from. And if he can recover from it, I'll be delighted to see him back on a cricket field again. But until then, his health is the most important thing.
Absolutely. Let's have an update on the cricket as it stands. Oval Invincibles currently 45 off 40 balls, 3 wickets down. But importantly, Billings and Roy still there. So Roy looks like he's playing a bit more of a measured innings. If you compare it maybe to the Alex Hales innings just over a week ago, it was just under a week, I'd lose track, where he sort of held himself back until the winning end. Maybe that's what he's doing there.
There was a question you missed back at 12 minutes past 6.
Oh, Tom. I'll come back to you, Lucy.
And it was, how do we know what is a par score on each ground? And I think this is
suspiciously named R. Baker. I don't want to give you any too much away, but are you something to do with this question? Or is this your mum?
I think somebody from my stable, yeah. The question was, what is a par score on each ground? I think the interesting thing is we just don't know. So we did that stats video at the beginning where we just looked at essentially strike rates in 2020 and try to work out, given wickets are worth slightly less and teams will go a little bit harder. But we've seen such a variation, haven't we? Because we've seen those absolute, Bunsen burner, turners up at Old Trafford where, 115 is a good score all the way
it's a bit of a Cockney rhyming slang there. Bunsen burner, yeah.
Through to, I think it was the first game, was it the Fire versus the Superchargers up at Headingley, where 170 didn't look enough, so I think we're learning, aren't we? And I think one interesting thing is we don't necessarily know from the women's game that precedes the men's game what would be a good score or not, because in quite a few occasions the women have actually outscored the men on the wicket. I know that's quite a bit due to the fact that the boundaries get brought in, but it's a good question because I just don't think we know. So I think the analysts are working overtime to work that one out. I'm
sure they're loving it. That's exactly the sort of thing they'd like to get their teeth into, and there's going to be a huge amount of analysis done on this over time. I want to answer actually the Shai Mandri question here, the viewership for the 100, and are the numbers good? So I'm just trying to find the article from Sam Morehouse on thecricketer.com because it had some of the data, but essentially the numbers are well above expectations in this country alone. I think at the moment, they're getting about 3 times as many viewers on Sky, so the paid channel which has all of the games, than they would get normally for a domestic T20 game. They're getting absolute records for women's cricket generally. The BBC has been reporting figures, and the BBC is the free-to-air stuff over here, clearly, has been reporting figures, over 1.5 million for a women's game, 2 million for a men's game. And the attendances were a little modest in their expectations, perhaps, but you could understand that from COVID. They were hoping for maybe 60% attendances in the ground. And at the moment, they're looking at 80% plus attendances. And they've sold 100,000 tickets in the first week after the opening game sort of kicked off. So it's getting out there. And most interestingly, it's who's buying those tickets and who's watching the games. I think
just before you go on to that point about who's buying the tickets, the last stat I saw, and it was covered in The Economist this week, the birth of the tournament, I've seen a figure that 83% of the tickets have been sold as of the last couple of days. And then just sort of from personal experience of going into the 100 websites, all of the remaining games are either selling fast or sold out. I mean, the Sophia Gardens is in Wales. The other 7 venues are in England. England and Wales have slightly different phases of reopening from the pandemic. So that's why if you've watched a Welsh Fire game at home, you might think, okay, well, there's hardly anybody there. That actually they have much tighter restrictions still on how many people can come to the games. They've sold out all of those tickets that are available in Cardiff. So I think we're probably going to see more or less full houses the way through. I mean, just before you carry on, I would say one thing. There's been one sort of criticism leveled at that, in that a lot of people have said that, most of these tickets are freebies, etc. Actually, the number of freebies is more like 4.5%. So, which is kind of in keeping with other cricketing competitions. So, I think actually, it's been incredibly strong in terms of both viewership and ticket sales.
Yeah, and just to my point on the who's buying, they're looking at about 25% kids at the moment. They are definitely seeing a different viewership on the telly as well. So it's younger and it kind of matches the market they were hoping to find. So let's see how it pans out. It's early days, but looking good on that side in terms of English and Welsh domestic cricket. Just Rosu saying that Nareen and Sandeep Lamachan could have been in the same team. They could have, and they might have needed it right now, because at the moment they're 51 runs from 47 balls and 4 down. So they've got Laurie Evans, who's a talented young English batter, alongside Jason Roy, who's struggling a bit for fluency, 18 from 23.
It's a subdued innings from Jason Roy so far, isn't it? It's a little bit like Alex Hales last week. I think that Shai mentioned it in one of his early comments. The best game so far was Trent Rocket's Northern Superchargers, and I won't go into it because I think we discussed it in depth in our game round 2 roundup. But Roy today reminds me a little bit about how Hales went in that game. Yeah.
Okay, let's take a couple more questions before we just try to wrap up the reviews. So this is a tough one, Shai. guys, you had a lot of predictions before the 100 started. How many of them have you got so far? So let me put it this way, Shai. I'm really bad at predictions. I'm famously bad. So if you watch the Wisden Fantasy Cricket League, I don't know if you guys are in it, I'm pretty much at the bottom of the women's side and not doing so well on the men's side either. So the ones I'm happiest with, I think, I said the Welsh Fire would do well. I think they are doing well. And despite today's loss, I think they will be a strong team for the remainder. The Oval Invincibles women I tipped, on the other hand, are absolutely looking like the worst team.
The Invincibles women, they're doing okay. You mean the Manchester
Originals? Sorry, Manchester Originals.
Manchester Originals.
My names
they really,
who I predicted. So there you go.
Yes. I think, we made a whole host of predictions, didn't we, as we went through the team sheets. I think... Yeah. We didn't do a sort of a mathematical exercise, but as the first squads were announced in the first game week and we compared them back to our previous shows, I think we've done a reasonable job of saying how the teams would line up, particularly in the women's game, where we had to do quite a bit of research because a lot of the players were new to us. I think I said in the numbers show that I thought a kind of a par score was going to be around 140. Overall, and I think on average that is about right at the minute. We haven't sort of seen much higher scores than that yet. We haven't seen 100 yet. I did say we were unlikely to see one. I know that disappointed.
Jemima Rodriguez came close.
She did come pretty close. We haven't quite seen one yet.
Yeah.
And if I could throw one out, Luz Deploy made his first appearance of the tournament today for the Welsh Fire. I tipped him as one of the good wild card picks, and he had 40 odd off. I think it was 15 balls, so he looked very good today.
Sorry, okay. So I'll just take this question and then, Russell, I'll be with you. In the previous show, Ollie was always keen to put some pace in his teams, with De Lange and Milne doing well. Was he right to back pace over the medium pacer all-rounders? There's something to be said for just raw pace, isn't there? Always.
Yeah, I think you need it as the option. I think we've spoken to Adam Milne and Brandon Glover, who's not involved in the playing squad tonight, but with the Oval Invincibles, both speedsters. They both emphasise the importance of variation. I was both impressed by them talking actually about the amount of research they do on the batters they're facing and how they work with the analytics department to really be on top of where the batter likes to hit, their various styles, what their plan is to get them out. But yeah, I don't know. I think it's always important to have raw pace. Perhaps less so in the women's game, where we haven't seen pace really dominating yet, except for Lauren Bell, who's done very well down at Southern Brave. Very tall, fast bowler, good in swingers. She's been quite impressive. But I don't think Izzy Wong's had the kind of number of wickets that some people were tipping.
Looked good in the first game. More to come, I think. So I'll just flash this up if I can, actually.
Go for it.
This is the currently economy rates actually for the men's competition. You see, there's a mix. There's got to be a mix out there. So Mason Crane, clearly a spinner. Milne, clearly a fast bowler. Spinner. Samit Patel bowling spin. So there's a bit of a mix in there in the economy rate, but also on the wicket side. And I'll just let this load up. Marsh and De Lange has taken the wickets. Matthew Carter the spin, then the pace, then the spin, pace. So it's a real mix out there in terms of who's doing what. And I think we're seeing different types of wickets, and we're going to see that therefore in how that looks. All right. Cool.
That's fair,
Rossu, just putting it out there, wants to say the Oval Invincibles are going to win the 100.
We'll mark it down. It's all right. We'll mark it down on the card, and when we do our final episode, if they do, we'll say Rossu Entertainment, you got it right.
I tell you what, I'll make a promise now. If the Oval Invincibles men win the 100, I will get 100 Oval Invincibles baseball cap to you. All right, I'll find you on internet, all right? And or you need to send us an email. We've got our email down in the description. If the Oval Invincibles men win the tournament, you'll get a free baseball cap out of me. All right, how's that sound? If you're watching along for the first time, welcome to the 100 Club. My name's Tom. I've got Rich alongside. We're just fans talking about the cricket. So please do drop a comment, a question down below. Give us a like and a thumbs up and a subscribe, and we'd love that. So just join in the fun. Okay.
And we're currently watching along with the Oval Invincibles Northern Superchargers game. I'm maybe a little bit behind you, Tom, but I have the Invincibles on 60.
You're about to see a wicket.
Oh, fantastic. Big Adil Rashid.
Yeah, so he's just
Evans.
picked...
Oh, yeah, regulation catch out into the deep. They're 60 for 5. They're in a bit of trouble here.
Yeah, this is going to be a low total again, but we saw it earlier, 109 or whatever it was for the women. Let's see if they can defend that as well, the Superchargers. So let's have another look at one of the other games from this week. We've had slightly losing track of where we were. What about the Southern Brave Birmingham Phoenix women game?
Yeah, this was an interesting one because I thought that the Birmingham Phoenix had actually got themselves up to a decent total. We were a bit worried that we were a curse after we interviewed Stephen Mulaney and then he had to self-isolate because of COVID. And I think Catherine Bryce got a golden duck in her first game. But after we chatted to the Australian batter, Katie Mack, she had a really, really good knock. I think she had 30 off 20 balls.
Yeah,
really good partnership with Amy Jones, who scored 42 in quick time as well. And they got the Phoenix up to 140 off their 100 balls, only 4 down. And Southern Brave, I think, are the team to beat in the women's comp. And I was intrigued to see how they would go about that chase. But I think the thing about the Southern Brave women is they've just got so many different weapons to hurt you with. So in the previous game, it was basically Smriti Mandana, took care of business. In their first game, Shrubsong, Stefani Taylor, got it done with the bat. This time it was Danny Wyatt, the England opener. She's been quiet in the first 2 games. She hit 69 off 40. Sophia Dunkley, 41 off 23. Stefani Taylor, just comes in and finishes the job, 22 off 14. Maya Bouchier, Amanda Jade Wellington aren't even required. So
well, I'll give an honourable mention. I'll give an honourable mention to Amanda Jade Wellington's bowling. Fantastic 2 wickets, 16 runs. So really tight, really set that innings up as well. Despite the best efforts of Amy Jones, who's really doing quite a good job for the Birmingham Phoenix and the bat as well.
Here's another one for you in terms of aggressive captaincy, because Rashid's just taken a wicket, dismissed Jordan Clark, caught at slip. And we saw a slip catch the other night, didn't we? And Matt Carter took a great one. It just shows that there is a place for aggressive captaincy in the 100. When the fielding side are on top, put a slip in, get an extra wicket.
Yeah, that was Dane Villas, I think, who is in the Northern Superchargers because Faf du Plessis still struggling, I think, with concussion following the Pakistan Super League. Yeah, so good catch, 60 from 58 balls for them. Okay, let's have another game, shall we? Or what do you want to talk about?
I think so I think we have one game left. Somebody correct me if I'm wrong. Which was the the Trent Rockets versus London Spirit Women.
Yeah,
it was on Thursday night, the early game. It was essentially the Rachel Priest show.
Yeah,
she got 70 odd off 40 balls. Had some fairly friendly bowling early on to get her on her way. There was quite a few full tosses in there that she helped into the grandstand. And I think once the Trent Rockets had got up to the total they did, it was always going to be very difficult for the London Spirit to get anywhere close to it.
A debut win for the Trent Rockets. Disappointing again from the London Spirit, really. They're not looking like a great team, I've got to be honest.
No, there's high hopes that Tammy Beaumont came into the team for that. She'd missed the first 2 games, having gone into a different bubble. She only made 13 in the game. So I think similar to if you look at Danny Wyatt getting that big score for the Southern Brave, basically when you're chasing a big total, you need one of your top 3 to go on and make a big score and then people to bat it around. I mean, Heather Knight's had a reasonable tournament so far, 40 in the last game, 31 today. And Danny Gibson, 18 off 12. Is she coming in too late? That's 48 runs in the last 2 games, off 20 balls. There or thereabouts. They need to think about their batting order a little bit. Not completely out of the woods because they do have a win, but they are struggling a little bit.
Yeah. Okay, I think we actually have 2 games left to discuss, but let's have a question then. So let's have a look. So question from Shai Andrew. Will we see a Super 5 in the knockout games? What do you reckon?
Potentially. I mean, it's the only 2 games in which we'll have a chance of a Super 5. I'm going to say probably not.
I'd put the chances at about 5%, I reckon. Pretty low.
Yeah.
Pretty low, unfortunately, because... Well, I suppose the finals at Lords, it's got a bit of form in terms of Super Overs in the not too distant past. We'll see how it goes.
I'm just seeing the comment from Rossi there saying there's always hopes for a personal favourite team. Absolutely. I'm still wearing the shirt, even though between the 2 teams, men and women, I think they won 1 game so far. But there's always hope. Question about Harmanpreet Kaur, your views.
Yeah, what do you reckon?
She's had a Well, I mean, she's got some runs. I mean, she's had a start in most games. She had the 40 odd the other day. I think she had 20 odd today. It's just not fired for the originals in terms of the batting lineup around her. She's always sort of coming in as a bit of a rescue job. Lizelle Lee ran herself out today. Emma Lamb's not really kind of had any big innings yet. Neither's Georgie Boyce. Mignon Dupree hasn't really got many runs either. So it just feels like she's got a lot of weight on her shoulders, and she's taken on a lot of the mantle that she needs to bat through the innings. So she's going reasonably well. She just needs some people to bat around her, I think.
Yeah, they always say form is temporary, class is permanent. So we're Harmanpreet will be back. I'm fairly sure. And, looks like Ollie's in.
Yeah. He confidently predicted 10 balls wouldn't be a tenner, as we're calling it, wouldn't be using very often. And then the first 10 balls of the tournament, of course, was bowled by was it Tash Farrant or Shabneen Ismail?
It was the first 10 balls, pretty much. Yeah,
essentially, yeah.
Yeah. Honestly, the quieter we are about our predictions, the better. I think we'll just let them sail quietly by. Okay, let's have another look at another one of the two games we got left, which were both the Welsh Fire games today. So I've got my shirt on, obviously. We had the Oval Invincibles Welsh Fire men. What do you make of that one?
Yeah.
Hello, Rich.
I'm here. Don't worry.
A little bit of a freeze there. A little bit of a freeze.
Freeze at both ends. Let's deal with the women's game first, and then we can finish off with the men's. And I just want to say, because I touched on it in the last answer, they just didn't get enough with the bat. They actually got themselves up to a reasonable score at the end because Sophie Ecclestone came in and smashed 30 off 15 balls. But Hayley Matthews played really well, the West Indian all-rounder, and she basically took the game away from the originals today, who do have a good bowling lineup. And
Hayley Matthews currently second in the batting charts in terms of runs scored so far with 134 off 90 balls. Just Jemima Rodrigues just ahead of her, but clearly on the move, very consistent, looking like absolutely the quality.
Yes, so and that was a very, very mature knock, to chase down that target. So quite impressed by the Welsh Fire this morning. Their men didn't go quite so well in the afternoon game. They struggled to get up to, I think it was 150 in the end, thanks to Luz Deploy coming in and smashing it. But I think I mentioned in answer to the questions at the beginning, who we've been impressed by. Joe Clark comes out and smashes a 60 off 30 odd. Really sets up the game. Yeah. Always sort of threatened to be a close game, but you always felt like the originals had it in hand in the men's game. I don't know about you.
Yeah, I think there was two things for me. The Welsh Fire bowled poorly. I don't think we can dress that up, particularly in the first half of that innings. And the injury to Jake Ball, I think that was important. He's left arm fast, which is very important at the death. He bowled really well at the death the previous game, and him only getting 10 balls out on this time because of his injury, I think made a big difference to what could otherwise have been a little closer. And it got closer than I thought it would at one point, but ultimately the Clark and Salt innings at the start just set them up for the win. Okay, absolutely. I think we're through the games as they've happened. What's happening in the Northern Superchargers game at Edgbaston?
The Invincibles are struggling. They're 68 for 6. It's time for a strategic timeout. They've got 30 balls to go.
That would explain why I've got an advert for crisps on my telly.
Who is this one? Is it Pop Chips? Southern Brave. I think, and that was quite good yesterday, wasn't it? James Vince, his advertising had fallen off his jumper, and some wag had changed the SB on his helmet to 69. So. Do you want
another kit story from today?
Go on then.
So Carlos Brathwaite, captain of the Overall Invincibles now.
Manchester Originals.
Sorry, Manchester. I keep getting the wrong way around. It's an O. There's an O in the name. So the Manchester Originals. Now that Josh Butler's gone down to Test duty, turned up in Cardiff for today's game with none of his kit, none at all. So yesterday in his hotel, they had to get a courier service for everything of his personal possessions to be delivered, but he still did all right.
Yeah, he did okay. They couldn't it wasn't a spare from another one of the players.
Yeah.
Because no one's quite big Carlos's size, is he?
Yeah, I see he still had his massive gold chain on, though, so clearly doesn't go anywhere without that.
I don't think that goes in the kit bag.
Yeah. Rossi's asking whether you can be on the show. You are on the show. Keep the comments coming. All right. Okay. I think we've pretty much reached a natural conclusion there. I'm quite keen to see the rest of this innings. Have you got any other points about the last round of play that you'd like to bring up?
I think the only thing I'd mention is there's been some interesting stuff on Twitter today with Kevin Peterson voicing his love of franchise cricket and thinks it should be applied to all cricket as well, and that we need a 8-team red ball format to solve our test woes. I think it's a pretty limited, short-sighted idea. I think we already have the 2 tiers of county championship with Div 1 and Div 2. I think the 100 is a great experiment. I think it's good for English cricket that it supplements the other tournaments, but no, let's not take it too far. I don't know what your view is.
I'm very much of the opinion that the 100 is brand new. Let it have a go first. There's that part. The other part is the board have not instigated anything with the 100 in terms of grassroots academy, feeder system, and there's no intent to, I don't think. So we need the county system. The ECB, I think, believes that. So when people are arguing head against the 100 against county, I don't think that's fair, because I don't see a world where they can't coexist. They need each other to a degree, and I am hopeful, but it's very early days. I'm very hopeful that maybe the long term for the game is some sort of mix here, a hybrid mix, where this exciting short format absolutely provides new viewers, new audiences, high class, condensed format cricket, but where the county game absolutely takes its rightful place as an important part of domestic cricket, where it's understood and appreciated more by more fans as a result, with more money, and let alone things like kids playing cricket in school again and all of that stuff.
I agree with that. I think hopefully we're going to see some exciting cricket in game week 4. As I see that last question, I hope see us too. I think as teams get to grips with the tournament, I think we're going to see more close games, and we will be back to talk about it at middle of I guess towards the end of next week as game round 4 goes into round 5, and hopefully we'll be lining up a few more interviews.
Yeah. So if you are new to the channel, please just say hi, give us a like, give us a subscribe. That's great. Check out the channel, though. We've got some great interviews on there that we've had the privilege of doing over the last few days. It's been great fun talking to people like Adam Milne, the Kiwi International, Brandon Glover today. We're loving it. So we will keep it going, but we're going to have a little break until Thursday, I think, and we'll see what we've got. But if you're enjoying it, please let us know. We are really enjoying it ourselves. So thank you for keeping us on track and for your participation today.
Cheers all.
Cheers. Have a great weekend.